The sun was slowly dipping into the horizon as Amara and her younger sister Liana walked home from the market. The streets were alive with the familiar sounds of city life, children playing tag, hawkers chanting prices, and the occasional beat of music leaking from a nearby shop. It was a normal day, until Amara suddenly stopped. Near an old wall, a man sat quietly with his back against the stone. His clothes were faded and torn, his hair unkempt. Yet something about him was different. His silence, his stillness, the distant pain etched into his young face. He didn't even look up. He just sat there, as if weighed down by the world. Liana stopped, confused. "Why are you staring at that guy?" she asked, nudging her sister. Amara didn't answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the man. "He's not like the others," she whispered. Liana folded her arms. "They're all the same, Amara. You always fall for this. He's just another beggar." Amara shook her head gently. "He looks lost, not hungry for food, hungry for something else." Without another word, she reached into her purse and pulled out some crumpled notes. Walking slowly to the man, she knelt slightly and placed the money near his knee. Startled, the man looked up. His deep brown eyes widened in surprise as he saw Amara's gentle smile. "Thank you," he said, his voice raspy but sincere. "Please," she said warmly, "get something to eat." Behind her, Liana let out a dramatic sigh. "Seriously, again, you can't save the world, Amara." Amara turned and replied softly, "If I can help just one person, maybe that's enough." Liana scoffed. "Fairy tales don't feed real people. Just wait till Mama hears about this." But Amara didn't care. She felt something strange tugging at her heart, a connection she couldn't explain. Back at their lavish home, a storm was brewing. The moment they stepped inside, Liana wasted no time. "Mama Clara," she called out. Guess what Amara did this time? Their mother, sitting elegantly on a velvet couch with a cup of tea, raised an eyebrow. "What is it now?" Liana smirked. "She gave money to a beggar, right there in the street, like she's some kind of saint." Madame Clara turned sharply to Amara, her eyes narrowed. "Tell me it's not true." Amara sighed. "It's true. He needed help. He wasn't even asking for anything. I just felt like I had to." "You felt?" Madame Clara snapped. "This isn't a charity house, Amara. Your father is gone. I'm the one managing this household now. You don't just throw away money on strangers." Amara stood still, calm. "It wasn't a waste, Mama. It was kindness." Madame Clara shook her head in disbelief. "One day you'll understand that kindness doesn't pay bills." But Amara had already understood something far greater. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness sow seeds that change everything. The walls of their grand home gleamed under soft chandelier light, but the atmosphere inside was anything but warm. Amara walked quietly up the staircase, her shopping bag in one hand, her heart weighed down by the confrontation with Madame Clara. She had been here before, accused, misunderstood, scolded for caring. Still, it never got easier. As she passed the living room again, she heard Liana's smug voice from downstairs. "Honestly, Mama, I'll never be like her. One day I'll marry into the Al-Hashim family, and we'll never have to worry about anything ever again." Madame Clara's voice softened instantly. "That's my smart girl. The Al-Hashims are the most powerful and influential family in this region. I've seen them at fundraisers, elegant, wealthy, untouchable. If you position yourself right, my dear, it will happen." Amara paused on the stairs, her hand tightening around the railing. It was the same story every day. Liana, the prized daughter, the one who could do no wrong. And her, just the reminder of a past that Madame Clara never fully embraced. She entered her room and shut the door quietly. Her sanctuary was small but full of comfort. Books lined her shelves, and soft faded curtains swayed gently in the breeze. She sat by the window, thinking about the man she had seen, his hollow eyes, the way he hadn't asked for anything, and yet how much he seemed to need. Who was he? The next evening after work at the city bank, Amara decided to take the long route home. The stress of counting cash and dealing with impatient customers had drained her, but the fresh evening air gave her mind room to breathe. That's when she saw him again. He was walking slowly, his head down, his thin shirt clinging to his back with sweat. His shoes, if you could call them that, were torn at the soles. Amara's heart squeezed. She hurried toward him. You're the one I met the other day," she said gently. The man looked up, surprised but not afraid. A smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "I guess I am. I'm Amara," she said, offering her hand. He took it softly. "Elia." She nodded. "Where are you going?" "To the East District," he replied, eyes flicking toward the horizon. "But I don't have transport money, so I'm walking." Without a second thought, Amara reached into her bag and handed him some notes. "Here, please. Take the bus. It's too far to walk." Elia stared at the money, then back at her. "Amara, I can't keep taking this from you." "You're not taking," she said gently. "I'm giving." His shoulders sagged in relief, and something flickered in his eyes. "Respect." "Thank you. I don't know what I did to deserve this kindness." "Maybe nothing," she said with a smile. "Maybe that's the point." As he boarded the bus and waved goodbye, Amara felt it again, that unshakable pull. She didn't know his story yet, but she knew one thing. Elia was no ordinary man, and something told her their paths were just beginning to intertwine. Amara found herself looking for Elia more often than she admitted. Each time they met, she brought him something small, a sandwich, a water bottle, a clean shirt. Sometimes they'd sit on the edge of the quiet park near the market, talking for hours. The world didn't matter in those moments. Elia had a quiet charm. He spoke with thought, listened with patience, and never once looked at her with greed or expectation. That alone made him different from every man Amara had ever met. "Tell me about yourself," she asked one evening, offering him half her sandwich as they sat on a rusted bench under the purple sky. Elia hesitated, glancing at the horizon. "I grew up in an orphanage. My parents died in a car accident when I was a baby. The nuns raised me." Amara's eyes softened. "You never had any family?" He shook his head. "Not really. When I turned 18, I had to leave. No real qualifications, no place to stay. I did odd jobs, carrying loads, cleaning restaurants, sweeping stores, but it's hard. Some days I don't eat. Some nights, I sleep behind market stalls." Amara felt her chest tighten, not out of pity, but something deeper. "You don't deserve this," she whispered. Elia looked at her and gave a weak smile. "Life doesn't always give us what we deserve, Amara." Her eyes locked onto his. "Then I'll give you what life couldn't, even if it's just a little help." He stared at her for a long second. "Why do you care?" "Because someone should." From behind a tall fence nearby, a pair of eyes watched them carefully. Liana stood there, arms folded, expression hard. Later that evening, Amara returned home to chaos. Liana was already waiting in the living room with Zain, their older brother, who had that usual smug grin on his face. "Well, look who's back," Liana said loudly. "How was your date with the Prince of the Pavement?" Amara dropped her bag and sighed. "I'm not in the mood, Liana." "Oh no," Zain chimed in. Because we heard you're playing Mother Teresa again, sitting on benches with a homeless guy like you're writing your own tragedy. At least I'm doing something meaningful, Amara shot back. You two haven't lifted a finger since graduating. You sit here, living off what Papa left us, while I work 6 days a week to help run this house. Liana stood, her face flushed. Don't you dare talk like you're better than us. I don't have to, Amara replied calmly. You already know I am. Just then, Madame Clara entered, her heels clicking against the marble. What's going on? Liana wasted no time. Amara's been hanging out with a beggar, not once but every day now. She even feeds him. Mama, she's embarrassing us. Madame Clara's face turned icy. She turned to Amara. Is this true? Amara didn't flinch. Yes, his name is Elia. He's not a criminal. He's just struggling. I don't care what his name is, Madame Clara snapped. You will stay away from him. I won't. Then you are no daughter of mine, she hissed. Amara's heart twisted, but for the first time she didn't beg. She simply replied, maybe I never was. The night was colder than usual. Amara wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders as she walked down the dimly lit street. Her heart felt heavy from the earlier fight at home, but it was Elia she was thinking about. He had looked so tired the last time they spoke, his eyes duller, his voice quieter. She knew he was hiding something, maybe even struggling more than he admitted. She quickened her steps toward the market area, where he often sat. But as she approached, something felt off. His usual spot was empty. Her heart began to race. She glanced around, scanning the shadows and alleyways, and that's when she heard it, a groan, low, pained. Amara turned toward the sound, fear creeping up her spine. In a narrow alley just off the road, she saw him, Elia. He was on the ground, curled up, blood on his shirt, a bruise blooming across his cheek. His breathing was labored, and his lip was split open. Elia, she cried, rushing to his side. He opened one eye weakly, and gave her the faintest smile. Amara, what happened? Who did this to you? Her voice trembled. Some guys said this was their area, told me to leave. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes. She had heard of local street gangs staking out territories and beating anyone they saw as weak or intruding. Elia had become a victim of their cruelty. I'm taking you to a clinic, she said firmly. No, he whispered. I can't afford. I didn't ask you to pay, she interrupted, already lifting his arm around her shoulder. You're coming with me. Elia leaned into her as she helped him up, wincing with each step. Her strength surprised even her. She hailed a taxi, gave the clinic's address, and kept holding him tightly the whole way. At the clinic, the nurses rushed to help. Amara explained everything as Elia was taken inside and placed on a narrow hospital bed. They cleaned his wounds, stitched up a deep cut on his arm and gave him painkillers. Through it all, Amara sat by his side, refusing to leave. You shouldn't have done this, Elia said weakly, looking at her. You'd do the same for me, she replied, adjusting his blanket. Elia smiled faintly. You're beautiful, Amara. Not just your face, your heart. I've never met anyone like you. Amara looked away, suddenly shy. Get some rest. I hope I dream about you, he whispered. She smiled, holding his hand gently until he drifted into sleep. But as the soft beeping of medical equipment filled the room, Amara knew one thing for certain. He couldn't go back to the streets. And deep in her heart, she already knew what she had to do next. She was going to take him home. Amara sat silently beside Elia's bed at the clinic, watching his chest rise and fall in a peaceful rhythm. He looked different when he was resting, less burdened, almost boyish. But she knew he couldn't stay there forever. The clinic had done more than enough, and the cost of treatment had already drained most of what little savings she had left. There was only one option left. As morning light began to filter through the windows, she leaned down and gently touched his shoulder. "Elia," she whispered. His eyes fluttered open, still groggy. "Amara, I want to take you home, just for a few days, until you're fully better." His eyes widened in alarm. "No, Amara, I can't. Your family, they'll never allow it." "You didn't ask," she said gently. "I'm telling you." Elia sat up slowly, wincing as pain surged through his ribs. "But they hate me. They already hate you for helping me." She gave him a small, steady smile. "Then let them hate me. I'm not going to abandon you." The car ride was quiet. Elia leaned against the door, still sore. When they pulled up to the gates of the large estate, he hesitated. "I shouldn't go in," he murmured. "You're already here," Amara replied, stepping out and looping her arm through his. As they walked inside, the echo of their steps on the marble floor announced their arrival. The moment the front door shut behind them, it began. "What is this?" Liana's voice pierced the silence, shrill and filled with disbelief. She stormed into the living room, followed closely by Zayn, who burst into laughter the second he laid eyes on Elia. "Seriously, Amara, you brought your charity case into the house now." "He's recovering," Amara said sharply. "He was attacked. He needs rest." "Well, he can rest on a sidewalk like he always does." Liana snapped. "Not here. Not in this house." Madame Clara emerged from the dining room, her expression already stiff with disapproval. She took one look at Elia, then turned to Amara, her voice as cold as stone. "You are joking, right?" "No, Mama," Amara said firmly. "He's staying, just for a few days." Madame Clara slammed her teacup down on the table. "Are you mad? Bringing a filthy street boy into my home? Do you have no shame?" "He was bleeding, Mama," Amara shouted back, her voice cracking. "They beat him half to death because he had nowhere else to go. And that's somehow our problem now." Liana laughed. "What's next, Amara? You'll start a daycare for beggars?" Zayn leaned back smugly. "Maybe she's already pregnant with his child." Amara's hands clenched into fists. "He's a human being," she hissed, "not trash. And he deserves help. He deserves the street." Madame Clara snapped. "You're a disgrace to this family. While your sister is preparing to marry into the Al-Hashim family, you're out here embarrassing us." Amara's voice shook as she responded. "Why is it that everything Liana does is right, and everything I do is wrong? You're not my daughter." Madame Clara suddenly screamed. The words hit like a thunderclap. The room went silent. Elia turned sharply to look at Amara, but she was frozen, her heart hammering in her chest. "What did you say?" she whispered. Madame Clara stood straighter, crossing her arms. "You're not mine, Amara. Your father had you before he married me. I raised you out of obligation, that's all." Amara felt the ground shift beneath her. Everything suddenly made sense. The favoritism, the coldness, the rejection. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't just hurt. She was free. She looked around the room, eyes clear and full of strength. "Then I choose him," she said quietly, nodding at Elia. She took his hand and walked out. Amara and Elia walked through the streets for hours. They didn't speak much. The cold air stung Amara's cheeks, but she didn't mind it. She welcomed the numbness. Her mind kept replaying Madame Clara's words over and over again. "You are not my daughter." Even though she had long suspected it, Hearing the truth shattered her in ways she hadn't expected. Yet somehow, the pain was easier to bear with Aaliyah's hand in hers. His presence was steady, like an anchor in a storm. They paused under a flickering streetlight. Aaliyah looked at her gently. "You don't have to go through this alone, Amara. There's something I need to tell you." Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. An unknown number flashed across the screen. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, is this Miss Amara Johnson?" A serious male voice asked. "Yes, who's speaking?" "I'm Inspector Kalu from the East Side Police Station. Your sister Liana has been arrested. We need you to come in immediately." Amara's heart skipped a beat. Arrested? Why? She was caught at a party with a man named Rico. Narcotics were found in his possession. Since she was with him, she's being held for questioning. We need a family member to come sign the bail release. Amara's face paled. Of course it was Rico, the same man her mother had turned a blind eye to, the one she had warned Liana about. "I'm coming," she said quickly. She ended the call and turned to Aaliyah. "Liana's been arrested. I have to go." "I'll come with you," he said simply. The police station was cold, with peeling walls and the faint buzz of old fans echoing through the corridors. Amara stepped in, her heart pounding, and her eyes scanned the room until she saw her sister sitting slouched in a plastic chair at the back. Liana's arms were folded, her expression more annoyed than ashamed. "You came," she muttered, barely looking at Amara. "I came because you're my sister," Amara replied softly, "even when you treat me like I'm not." Liana rolled her eyes. "Spare me the speech, Mother Teresa. Just sign the damn papers." Amara took a slow breath, trying to stay calm. "Do you even realize how serious this is? Rico was caught with drugs. This could ruin you." Liana scoffed. "Whatever. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Always helping beggars, acting like you're better than the rest of us." "I never said I was perfect," Amara replied. "But I never threw away my life either." Just then, the door swung open. Madame Clara stormed into the room, her face red with rage. "Where is my daughter?" Liana's face lit up. "Mama." Amara stepped aside as Clara rushed to her favorite child. "Oh my baby, what did they do to you?" "Mama, it wasn't my fault. Rico said it was just a party." Amara shook her head. "Mama, you need to talk to her. She's been reckless. This isn't the first time. Who do you think you are?" Madame Clara turned on her. "You think you can lecture my daughter? You are nothing, Amara. Nothing but a burden your father left me. You should be thankful I even let you eat under my roof." The words cut deep, but Amara didn't cry. "Not this time. I never asked for your kindness," she said quietly. "Everything I have I worked for, and all I ever wanted was to be loved like a daughter." "You are ungrateful," Clara snapped. "I should have left you at that orphanage where you belonged." Amara's voice trembled. "And yet I still tried. I still wanted to be part of this family." Liana stood silently now watching, but Amara was done. She turned to Aaliyah, who had witnessed everything in silence. "Let's go," she said. He took her hand warm and firm, and they walked out together. The streets felt quieter than usual. Maybe it was the heaviness in Amara's chest, or maybe it was the ache of years of trying to belong somewhere she never truly did. She walked beside Aaliyah, in silence, her fingers laced with his. He hadn't said much since they left the police station, but his silence wasn't empty. It was understanding. Finally, Amara broke the quiet. "I have nothing now," she whispered. "No family, no home, just memories that feel like bruises." Aaliyah stopped walking and turned to face her. His eyes filled with something that almost scared her.
intensity, compassion, and something deeper. You don't have to figure it all out alone, he said softly. Amara blinked. What do you mean? He exhaled deeply, as if gathering courage. There's something I haven't told you, about who I really am. She frowned. Aaliyah. My full name is Aaliyah Okafor. She stared at him confused. Okafor, as in the Okafor Industries. He nodded slowly. Yes, my father is Chief Suleiman Okafor. My mother is Madame Olivia. I'm their only son. Amara's mouth fell open, her mind racing. But you lived on the streets. You had nothing. You said, I know, he interrupted gently. I lied, not to hurt you, but to find something real. He took both her hands in his, holding them like they were sacred. Every woman I ever met only wanted my last name, my family's money. I got tired of being treated like a prize, not a person. So, I decided to disappear, to see if someone could care about me without knowing anything about what I owned.
Amara was speechless. I went undercover as a poor man, and that's when I met you. He continued. You didn't just give me food or money. You gave me your time, your heart. You treated me with respect when you had nothing to gain. She pulled her hands away, overwhelmed. So all this time you were testing me? No, he said firmly. I didn't know I'd meet you. I didn't expect to fall in love. Amara looked away, her emotions in turmoil. I don't even know what to feel. Just feel this, he whispered, stepping closer. I love you, Amara. I love the woman who stood up to her whole family for a man she thought had nothing. I love the woman who never stopped giving, even when the world gave her nothing in return. Tears pricked her eyes. I want to take you home, my real home, he said. Let me show you who I really am. Not as Aaliyah the beggar, but as the man who wants to build a future with you. Amara stared at him, her heart pounding. She had lost everything, but now standing before her was a man who wanted to give her everything. Slowly she nodded, and when he led her to a sleek black SUV parked just down the street, she didn't resist. The black SUV rolled silently through tall golden gates, revealing a mansion that looked like it had been carved out of a dream. Towering palm trees lined the long driveway. A marble fountain sparkled at the center of the roundabout, and the mansion itself rose high and proud, white stone, gold accents, and glass windows that shimmered under the setting sun. Amara stared, speechless. This is your home, she whispered. Aaliyah smiled gently. Welcome to the Okafor estate. As the car came to a stop, two suited guards opened the doors. Amara stepped out slowly, still dazed. She felt out of place, like a shadow among stars. Before she could catch her breath, the grand front doors swung open. Out came a regal-looking couple. Chief Suleiman Okafor stood tall, his voice deep and commanding. There he is, our son. Next to him, Madame Olivia smiled warmly. We've been waiting for you, Aaliyah. Aaliyah walked forward and hugged his parents. Then, turning to Amara, he took her hand gently. Mom, Dad, this is Amara. Amara bowed her head awkwardly. Good evening, sir. Mom, Madame Olivia walked forward and took her hands. My dear, she said kindly, no need to be nervous. We've heard so much about you. Chief Suleiman chuckled. Aaliyah wouldn't stop talking about the girl who made him believe in love again. Amara flushed, unsure how to respond. You must be tired, Madame Olivia said. Come inside. We're preparing dinner. Aaliyah nodded. We'll be there shortly. As his parents stepped back inside, Aaliyah turned to Amara and led her to the quiet garden near the back of the house. The breeze was soft, scented with jasmine. The lights from the mansion lit up the garden path. Amara was still reeling. All this time you were living like nothing. I had to be sure, Aaliyah said. I had to know someone could love me for who I am. Not for this. He motioned around at the mansion. Then, without warning, he stopped and turned to face her. I told you once I loved you, he said. But I want to show you just how much. He dropped to one knee. Amara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small velvet box. Inside sat a breathtaking diamond ring, round, radiant and wrapped in gold. Amara, he said, his voice trembling with emotion, you stood by me when I had nothing. You saw me when I was invisible. You fought for me when no one else would. He looked up at her, eyes shining. I want to spend the rest of my life fighting for you. Will you marry me? Tears filled Amara's eyes. Her chest rose and fell with the weight of the moment. She had been cast aside, mocked, and unloved. But now this moment was hers. Yes, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, Aaliyah. He slid the ring onto her finger, stood, and wrapped her in his arms as she burst into tears. From the mansion windows, Aaliyah's parents watched with smiles, already preparing for the engagement of the century. Amara had finally been chosen, not for charity, not for pity, but for love. And this time it was forever. The Okafor mansion was buzzing with celebration. Preparations for the wedding of the year were underway. Luxury planners, florists, caterers and designers came and went like a well-orchestrated symphony. Every detail was perfect, just like the bride. Amara, now the future Mrs. Okafor, moved through the estate with quiet grace. Every room she entered seemed to pause, as if the walls themselves admired her. Madame Olivia treated her like a daughter, and Chief Suleiman called her our pride. For the first time in her life, Amara felt safe, cherished, seen, but miles away, in a modest living room that once reeked of arrogance and scorn, chaos was unfolding. Madame Clara's voice shook the entire house. Where is Liana? Zane looked up from the couch, annoyed. What is it this time? Clara threw a paper onto the table. Your sister, your brilliant, foolish sister, has mortgaged our house. Zane shot up. What? At that moment, Liana strolled in, sipping juice and scrolling through her phone. Mama, can you not yell for once? Don't you dare. Clara pointed a trembling finger at her. You signed away our only property, for Rico. Liana scoffed. He said it was a guaranteed return. He was getting into a deal with some foreign investor. He just needed quick cash. Zane grabbed his head. How much? Liana hesitated, then muttered, 50 million. The room froze. Before anyone could scream again, there was a knock at the door. Zane opened it to find 3 sharply dressed men with documents. We're from Royal Mortgage Agency. One of them said, this house now belongs to the bank. You were given multiple warnings. Today, we're here to take possession. Clara dropped to the floor. No, no, this can't be happening. You can't do this. Liana shouted. The man flipped through the file. Signed by you. Witnessed. Stamped. Everything is legal. As the agents began to inspect the property, Clara cried out like a woman who had just lost everything, which she had. Zane collapsed onto the couch. We're homeless. In the middle of their panic, the television still played quietly in the background, until the anchor's words silenced the room. Breaking news. Billionaire heir Aaliyah Okafor is set to marry the love of his life, in a grand ceremony being called the wedding of the decade. The mysterious bride, Amara Johnson. The screen flashed images of Amara, in a golden gown beside Aaliyah, both glowing with happiness. The headline read, Queen of Grace, the woman who stole the heir's heart. Clara's eyes widened. Amara,
Zane nearly dropped the remote. No way. But Liana looked like someone had slapped her soul out of her body. Her lips trembled. That's my David, my Aaliyah, the man she had laughed at, called a beggar, the same one she had mocked Amara for bringing into their home. Now he was everything she had dreamed of marrying, and he had chosen Amara. Their laughter, their arrogance, their cruelty, it had all led to this. They had lost everything, while the girl they once called Charity Case was walking into a kingdom. The grand ballroom of the Okafor estate shimmered in gold. Crystal chandeliers floated above, casting diamonds of light across polished marble floors. Flowers in white and blush bloomed in every corner, and violins played soft classical music as elegantly dressed guests, politicians, royalty, billionaires filled every chair. This wasn't just a wedding, it was history. At the top of the staircase stood Amara. She wore a gown spun from stardust, white silk adorned with fine embroidery, and pearl-threaded lace. A diamond tiara rested gently on her curled hair, and a veil flowed behind her like a whisper of clouds. She held her bouquet close, her heart even closer. Below at the altar stood Aaliyah, sharp in a white designer tuxedo, a smile lighting up his entire face. His eyes never left her. The music swelled. Amara took her first step down the aisle, each stride carrying 1,000 memories of tears, rejection, being told she didn't belong. But those voices were now mere echoes. She wasn't walking to prove anything. She was walking into everything she had ever deserved. In the last row, quietly seated, were Madame Clara and Liana. The only reason they had been allowed in was because Madame Olivia, gracious as ever, had extended them an invitation, out of respect, not reconciliation. They sat still, swallowed in regret, watching the very girl they once discarded being crowned by destiny. Liana's hands trembled as she stared at the man she once laughed at, the man she had secretly dreamed of marrying. Her stomach churned with every vow, every smile, every second that reminded her she had mocked the very love she now envied. Madame Clara dabbed her eyes, but no handkerchief could wipe away her guilt. At the altar, Aaliyah took Amara's hands. "You changed my life," he said, "not by being perfect, but by being good. You loved me when I was nothing, and that makes you everything." Amara's voice shook. "You gave me a home, not made of bricks, but of honesty, patience and love. You saw me." The priest smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Aaliyah leaned forward and kissed her, softly, reverently. The room erupted in applause. Fireworks exploded outside. A new chapter had begun. That night Amara stood on the balcony of her new home, looking out over the city skyline. The stars were bright, the air cool. Aaliyah came behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Are you happy?" he asked. Amara leaned into him and smiled. "More than I ever imagined I could be." They stood in silence, two souls who had found each other not through status or work, but through pain, kindness, and truth. Inside, the world celebrated a wedding. Outside, the wind whispered, "The girl they threw away has become a queen, and she never had to beg for love again."